Perfect. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for sharing some time with us today. I know it's hard to kind of, when you're running a business and trying to juggle everything in. It's so great to stock your products at our studio and enjoy your products myself. But I guess I just wanted to have a chat to you to learn a little bit, one, about the My Tribe story and how it all started. And then secondly, around adaptogens. So I know a little bit about them, but I feel like you're able to educate me and just maybe even give me a little bit more information about some of the range and the best way to take it. So maybe we'll just start with the My Tribe story.
My Tribe type story is definitely my story. I've never been well. I have a genetic mutation, MTHFR, which of course we didn't know about genes until a few years ago, and I have MTHFR, which evidently is very common, and a lot of people don't know they have it. So I think more will come out about MTHFR. I don't absorb folate, which of course, and we get very low in B12, and of course we don't deal with stress very well.
Yep.
And for me, that led to autoimmune disease, leaky gut, and IBS, and I had that from a very young age of 13.
Okay, wow.
When no one knew what they were, because just to put some light on that, I'm horrifyingly 55, and
you're looking fantastic.
still doing all the stuff, and I still want to do a lot more. So never being well, and I was a chef by trade. I always used food to, even when I was quite young, I was always cooked very clean and was more into the health spectrum before health and wellness was a thing. People used to say, when Amanda cooks for you, you feel cleansed, even though it was French, I'd be lighter on the butter, and I'd have more greens and, that kind of thing. But I sort of got to this crisis point when I was very unwell and no one really knew what was wrong with me. And I tried everything, all the diets and the gaps and the, all the solutions that float around with the ketos and the paleos and the lifestyle things and the medication and a lot of prescriptions and a lot of supplements. And I got quite desperate because I couldn't get out of bed and I was seriously unwell, like a single mother, having to work, kid in school, and all the pressure. So lots of stress, stressy job, not great genes to cope with stress. And I started reading about ashwagandha, and people were taking that and having some success. And this is when blogs were, not very pretty things. People didn't really read them very much. They were kind of new, and I was like, oh, hey, I can try that. I'll try anything. And this was, years and years ago. And I had some success with that. I took that, and gradually over about 6 months, I found I was taking less medication. And over 9 months, I wasn't taking my thyroid medication anymore. And thought, well, this powder and food, I sort of started doing a lot of looking into it, and I started reading a lot of medical papers on it, and I found out it's a food and it's a herb and it's an adaptogen. So I kind of got so into adaptogens. I had thousands of different types and multiple adaptogens, and started incorporating them into my day over years, and then gradually went, well, these are better in the morning, these are better in the afternoon, these are for hormones and sexiness, these are for more cleansing and gentle detoxing, because gentle detoxing is a lot nicer on your system, especially when you have MTHFR, because a detox can throw me into hospital pretty much. Okay. We don't cope with them well. And so gradually the range kind of developed from there, and then it became like, well, I should sell these and commercialize these. So that's kind of the way it all came about. And for me, I'd worked with food since I was 9 years old. I had my first job in a restaurant at 15. I grew up in the country, I chefed all over, London, and I worked in America and Sydney, and we had a couple of restaurants, and food's always been my thing. So for me, they're food. And I think that that's sort of a really important holistic angle to supplements for you to sort of take on, because a lot of the supplements we take are derivatives of food or extracts of food, or they've singled out attributes of those chemical components of the food, but you don't get the life cycle of the plants supporting that food's actions. So from a health and wellness perspective, you're getting the whole food. The holy basil, for example, is a powdered holy basil. It's the whole leaf. It's not just the extract of holy basil. So it's a lot gentler on the system, and your body actually recognizes as it a food, instead of just taking, like a supplement, and you can go, oh, well, that's really strong, or that's starting, to have effects on me, positive or negative. But I think my holistic view of wellness is that it's lifestyle based, it's attributed to food and connection, and my tribe type's about sort of that idea about connection and who we are, and like-mindedness, and feeling fulfilled because we have this sort of natural stress protection that adaptogens provide. So adaptogens are herbs, roots, berries, and mushrooms, but they can only be classified as adaptogens if they have the benefit of modulating your cortisol and your, which is a hormone, and your hormones. So some people say some things are adaptogenic, and they're very beneficial if you have stress, but they're not necessarily modulating your cortisol response. Does that make sense?
Yes, that
so,
does.
So the way adaptogens work is, and where the name comes from, it's a particular quality in the herb that talks with the HPA axis, which is our sort of messaging system, and decides how many hormones we're going to make and which hormones are dominant, if we're going to have cortisol spikes or high estrogen or low estrogen, and everything has side effects, which we're learning more about now. And the way adaptogens work is you're adapting your stress response. So for example, you have a stress response, your first sort of instinct is to kind of freeze for a second. Sometimes your digestion stops, you start drawing all your sugar in because you have to make cortisol, because you have to run, and then you have this cortisol spike that goes up, and then you stay in this spiked reactionary phase, which is where you are running, you're getting out of the way of danger, and it's a bit difficult to think, and you're not really digesting, and your system's only focused on survival at that point. Then you slump down, and your immune system can drop 70% after a high cortisol spike and a stress response. What happens with adaptogens is you still have that moment to go, oh shit, something's, I've got to, it's bad. And you have that moment when you go down, because you still have obviously the response that you need to have, because cortisol is there for a reason. We do need to get out of the way of the bus, or we do have to do something. But the spike is not as high, which means we're not like completely closing down. And then we're holding that level of response for not as long. And our drop in our immune system is not as low. So the difference between those two lines on a graph, if you ever see them, are called the adaptogenic effect. So that's kind of where the name comes from. And they've been used, a lot of cultures have used them over, traditional use. And they first were studied by the Russian Olympic team with Sassandra and Siberian ginseng and rhodiola. I think the first sort of truly studied with bioenhancing stress response.
Yeah, I think that what you've been talking about, I can just see so many of my clients, that's just the way that they live their life, in this constant state where their cortisol levels are just so elevated. They're rushing here, they're rushing there, they've got to pick the kids up from school, they've got to get to work, they've got to meet deadlines, they're exercising hard, they've got things to do on the weekend. And I just think, to try and bring that balance back into people's lives, that using adaptogens is really, really beneficial in terms of preventing sort of long-term illness and
Yes, it is really, like, for me, like all the wellness stuff is really preventative, isn't it? You know, like it's, oh, sorry, oh, make that go away. Yeah, so that, and the other thing that's coming out now is, you know, if you do have a lot of stress, you've got high cortisol spike, which then upsets all your hormones underneath that. And I am talking predominantly about women, and you may have male clients as well, because it does upset them too. But particularly estrogen and progesterone, if your cortisol is high all the time, your progesterone is being robbed, because it's being turned into estrogen, so you can get estrogen dominance and low progesterone. Progesterone's your happy hormone.
Yeah.
If you're low in your happy hormones, it's not great. If you have estrogen dominance, which I had, to the point where they thought I had lupus and systemic body pain, and my estrogen was way off the charts and my progesterone was on the floor, like before I started taking adaptogens. And I was really sick. And there's a lot of things we know now about the balance of cortisol, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in women. So it's not, it's quite difficult, I think, to kind of understand how complex our hormones are as women and how much they play a part in our life, because we tend to not separate ourselves well from our feelings. And I can now go, well, I'm 55 and I've had the worst state of menopause ever, where naturally I haven't gone through it well and my estrogen's dropped through the floor. I'm going, well, it's not me, it's my estrogen. You know, so I'm working with all the supporting networks that I can to do that. And that's just the way I'm made. But as women, we know when we're upset and overwhelmed and distraught and stressed, sometimes it's not us.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you should mention that. I often think that it does take my clients that are women particularly a long time to understand that it's actually just not a reflection of them, that there's actually something chemically going haywire in their bodies. So yeah, I guess that's a really, really good point to make.
Yeah, and you know, like, you know, and I've had a lot of women say, oh, but you know, like, it's because I don't eat properly, and it's because I do this, and it's because I do that. And I'm going, well, yeah, you have this whole chemical makeup in you that is making you feel this way. It's not you, because you're doing all the things that you can possibly do. Yep. But you feel like inadequate and tired and frustrated and like you can't cope. So yeah, I think that it's really great what's happening now. I mean, that's the plus of social media, that there is more information and more accessibility.
Yes, but it needs to be the right information, which is,
it is hard to do
really important to make sure that, yeah, when we're like sharing information, that it comes from a credible source. So I think that that's why I'm really thankful that you're able to share this information with us today. So I guess I just wanted to talk about some of the products. So I'm using quite a few of them, but in terms of like, is there a correct kind of way to use the different types, or does it depend on like where you are in terms of cortisol levels? So I know we've talked a little bit before around that using like the cacao as a replacement in the afternoon is a good way to switch out an afternoon coffee. But yeah, from your perspective, what do you think in terms of best practice? Or
well, everybody, of course, you know, like we have our bio-individuality, and these are new foods to us. So I always introduce them sort of one at a time. And, you know, it's a nice way to kind of introduce any new food, I think. And I have my core products, which are the Self-Made Love, Invincible Love, and Strong. And that's kind of my core set, I guess. And it's just really nice to start incorporating them into your mornings, I find. Strong is quite stimulating. I find that because the Siberian ginseng, Panax ginseng, are great for aging, but they also, to a more sensitive person, give you more energy. I've had a lot of guys that use that they do those marathon bike rides, you know, like those days. I don't know how they do it, but they take Strong with them on those things.
How do you recommend? So what's the best way? You know, is it heat sensitive or?
Some are more heat sensitive than others. You can actually add heat to Strong and Love and invincible. I do steer away from the greens because the antioxidants in the greens are more fragile, and you've got vitamin C in there with amla, and that of course is more fragile to heat. But when I say heat, I mean like barista heat. I don't.
Yes, yeah. So I'm thinking heat of a blender would be fine, because I use the
not boiling them so much, but you can actually boil astragalus, and there's quite a good tonic with boiled astragalus and pepper and turmeric, and that's kind of the base of, say, the Evolve latte, for example.
Yes, yeah.
And I guess to sort of put it into context, if you kind of imagine these are all just powdered roots, herbs and berries and mushrooms, they taste like what they are. So some actually have quite a tangy bitterness, especially the astragalus, which is in Evolve, and ashwagandha, which is in Love, but they each blend has a balancing spice or herb, whether it be ginger or cinnamon. It doesn't disguise it completely, but it is a beneficial functional food. And I didn't want to use stevia because I personally really don't like it.
Yeah.
It's bad. And also there's a little bit of writing about how stevia can stimulate a sugar spike, even though you're not having sugar, which I thought was kind of sounded even worse. So I'm very careful with it. I don't like sweeteners and fake things very much. So there's no flavors and sweeteners in the powders. They are what they are. But I do recommend, if you're vegan, you can use maple syrup and a bit of coconut nectar, like the coconut sugar. Some people use honey, and then you can modulate how much you're really adding, and you're conscious of how much sugar you're putting in your diet and what type of sugar you're putting in your diet. I find some of the almond milks too are so naturally sweet that
the unsweetened ones,
I sweetened ones, and I still go with this, still a bit sweet. And coconut milk is quite good because it's naturally sweet, and that's if you're doing a latte, so I would do that. So the different ways you can add them to make a latte, where you can add them to warm milk and have them in the morning. Or I actually, and in America, because I did a lot of research into America, I went there before I sort of went live, just to check on how people took them, who took them, what the marketplace looked like with the range that they had of them over there, and to sort of get a feel for the way different people took them. So you can add them to your coffee. When I travel, I take Love in my handbag and I put it in my coffee when I go to a cafe, because of course you've got no blenders in your room, and they're not nice and instant coffee. So you can add a teaspoon into your coffee, which is quite a thing, especially in the States.
So if you're adding it to the coffee, so that would really lessen the cortisol spike that you'd be likely to experience as a result of the caffeine stimulation, would you say? Or
well, you're still sort of getting
both. The caffeine, but
and most of the time I'm sort of decaffeinating, so.
But for others like myself who rely on caffeine to get through the day.
But the adaptogenic benefit's kind of a long-term thing. Like, because it's sort of tricky to understand, because you're taking it in the morning, but it's benefiting your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're modulating your cortisol and your stress response through the day, you actually sleep better in the evening. Ashwagandha is great for evening, if you want to have that in the evening. Evolve is good in the evening. Some people do quite well on Love in the evening. I mean, different people have different sensitivities as well.
Yes.
For helping to sleep. I can take cacao with benefits later in the day and still sleep really well. Some people find cacao very stimulating, and maca very stimulating. I don't. And strong is the only one I really don't take in the evening. I find it gives me too much go. And you can add them. It's nice. They've all got names on them that hopefully kind of explain, a little bit about what they do. So Greens and Glow was sort of my gentle detox, self-made.
And I love that, just in terms of the like the spirulina component for just like, obviously I'm not very good in terms of my diet and trying to get through everything that I know that I should be having, and I think that just is a really easy way for me in the morning. I just pop some into my smoothie.
You're getting some greens.
Yeah, it's great.
And holy basil is so great for the skin.
Yes.
Antiviral, antibacterial, adaptogenic, really good mood lifter as well. It's in the adaptogen family. It's kind of, what do they call it? Nature's antidepressant.
Okay, great.
So that holy basil I love, and the scent is particularly good in essential oils as well. So that's in the Greens and Glow with the amla, which is also protective with high vitamin C, so it's great for the skin. So that's like one way to get greens and stress protection. You can add it. I sometimes mix it into just coconut yogurt.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, I've done that with the natural yogurt as well.
Yeah, so just, a teaspoon. The idea too is it is just a level teaspoon. I think, some people are using potentially more than that.
Okay.
So I just put in, can you see that?
Yep, that's great.
I just get the teaspoon and then like level it off.
Okay, yeah, I don't. I actually just kind of shake the jar in, so I probably should be a little bit more measured.
Especially with, say, strong. I mean, strong for me, I probably only take about half a teaspoon.
Yeah, so that's probably what I'm doing wrong. I'm probably taking, too much of the strong, and it is quite a, I need to measure properly. Yeah, that's a really good tip. Thank you.
And also, like, you're getting, the life out of the product as well. It's giving you 22 serves, and they're sort of designed to use over a month, because you can have your few days off on the weekend, or where your routine goes a bit haywire, or you have something different. And then, but you're also, like, basically, if you do take them every day for 22 days, you're getting a little break, which is also really important for your body too, because your body's accepting the new normal. You've got this adaptogen working in with your cortisol response and modulating that hormone, which is helping to balance everything for you. And then you let your body come back to a new normal, and that's another sort of an internal adaptation. And then you can start the next month on it again. So you're getting that little break. And it also relates back to a lot of my research with my genetic issue. Is the best way to take supplements was to pulse them, because if you think about your nutrition, you wouldn't go and eat every single varietal of plant and protein, and in a day you would basically get this selection, and then this selection, and then this selection, and that goes to make up you as you assimilate that into your body, and you are getting all the nutrients that you need. So the idea is that you can have one a month, and you do get this little break.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that you're not taking it consistently 30 days in a row, and then 60 days in a row, and then 90 days in a row. I mean, you can do that, and some people do 3 months straight and then give it a break, depending on their personal approach to their wellness and what they want to achieve. But that's kind of how they're designed. And I did design the Latte Blends as well, because I thought that they were sort of easier to understand for people. So the Evolve Latte is really good for evenings. And, the whole turmeric latte thing was sort of taking off 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yes.
But it's the high curcurium turmeric, which I'm still finding a little bit tricky to get, actually. It's 8.75% curcurium, and this natural organic premium curcurium is quite dark. It's really fragrant. Astragalus is great for aging. It's sort of a root, and it's got a slight tangy bitterness to it, but it's blended with reishi mushrooms, of course, which are great for aging and immunity, and chamomile, which is really nice and slightly sedative. Yep. And ginger and cinnamon and cardamom to actually help with the flavor, and all those things have a benefit. And you can either just heat that in coconut milk, or you, I have a lady in Copenhagen who just mixes it with hot water and adds lemon juice, and she's...
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I think I normally have it with almond milk, but it tastes quite nice. Yeah, but, I might try the water. I don't know.
Well, water and honey actually is quite nice if you like a little bit of that's what I call a tonic. See, to me, a tonic is anything mixed with water and add a little bit of like lemon or honey. And I find them quite therapeutic. And if I'm in a hurry, I don't want to make a latte. I don't want to make a coffee. I don't want anything to eat in a yogurt and another smoothie just so I can take my powder.
Yeah.
I can just, put the kettle on, add a little bit of honey, add some powder, and give it a stir, let it sit decoat for 3 minutes, and sip on that. And I feel really light. I know I've had what I wanted to do.
It's actually a really beautiful thing to replace like a herbal tea, or it's actually a really nice thing to enjoy.
And historically, that's how they used to take them.
Okay.
They would make them into, they would blend them with hot water, and they would let them decoat for, 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever. And then they would sip on that all day. So that's another thing. You can actually let it cool and then strain it into your water bottle and take it to work.
Yeah, great.
If you wanted to. So you've got your adaptogenic tonic, because all the goodies come out of the powder into that infusion. So that's what I found is like the fastest, easiest and simplest, and it's quite refreshing. You're not taking in, if I thought about how much almond milk I drank in a day, by the time you have the smoothie and then you have a couple of lattes, and I'm like, oh God, I just don't want to have another almond milk.
Yeah, I was just thinking that's a really, really great way to do it and to enjoy it, rather than just feeling like you're forced to find some way to get it down, but just to take your time with it. Yeah.
And it's quite refreshing because you're just drinking the water off the top, which has the flavors. So if you've sweetened it a touch to your own taste, it's quite pleasant with lemon. I add goji berries to it as well. That's a really nice way, because goji tea was quite a thing, and historically. So some goji berries, some powder, some hot water, some lemon and honey, and it's a quite refreshing like cocktail, even if you have it cold. And I throw in basil, and sometimes I throw in mint and fennel, and you can go crazy. But the idea of the tisane, do you know what tisane is?
No, I don't know.
Oh, tisane is they drink a lot of them in France, and you get your fresh herbs and you just put them in, pour boiling water over them with a slice of lemon, and it's like a fresh tea.
Okay.
They look super elegant and lovely and cool, in a big glass, and you can drink them cold or you can drink them hot. Again, that's just a really nice way to keep you hydrated, and great for this weather and going to winter.
So it's definitely already winter here.
So that's sort of the evolved latte. I stir a spoon of that sometimes into my coconut yogurt as well. And then there's cacao with benefits, as I was talking about before. I can't do a lot of coffee because, as you probably noticed, I'm an on person. So with coffee, I'm just scary. The maca is adaptogenic and hormone balancing. The mesquite is, a base for good mineral nutrition. Cacao is a great antioxidant. It's also nootropic, so it's it affects your brain. Nootropic. Some adaptogens are nootropic. Not all adaptogens are nootropic.
Yeah, the turmeric is nootropic as well, isn't it?
Yeah, turmeric as well. So yeah, that's in the other one. But I find the cacao with the maca, the mesquite, the cardamom, and the chili and the cinnamon, to me, it's naturally sweet enough. But some people add a little bit more, because I've balanced out that cacao flavor with the chili and a tiny touch of Celtic sea salt, which is high in trace elements and minerals. And I tell everyone to throw out that other white commercial salt that they have and get Celtic sea salt, because Sel de Mer grey natural sea salt. It has trace elements and minerals, and from a chef point of view, it has more flavor. It doesn't taste like salt. It tastes like it's seasoning your food. It's a difference between, if you use white salt and then you use a mineral-based grey salt, you're actually getting a better flavor and all the trace elements. So that's the salt helps balance out the profile on your tongue of the cacao to balance that out. And I just mix that with, I either put it in one of those milk whippy things, you know, I get it started and then you add it and it sort of whips it all up together. Yeah. Or when I'm traveling, it's, you know, pretty boring with hot water and adding some almond milk or something like that. And I also put it in smoothies. I can stir it through yogurt and that's quite nice. It's almost like a dessert. Because you can put, you know, some cacao nibs and some toasted almonds on top, and that's quite nice. So there's that one. And then the vegan collagen too. I add, you can add that to smoothies or to yogurt. I don't tend to add heat to that one because the blueberries are a more fragile antioxidant. There are anthocyanins in them for the skin. But it's more smoothies and yogurt. You can just put it in cold water as well. It doesn't, you know, I don't make them to dissolve super fast because they are just herbs.
Okay. And there's not really a taste profile to it though, is there?
The vegan collagen? It's more of a berry flavor. You do get the sort of the sense of the earthiness of the chaga extract coming up because there is 0.25 micrograms per serve. So yeah, and there's the rhodiola, and it does have that herby taste, but the berries definitely more the overriding flavor. So yeah, everything I think is really up to the individual. Whatever you do in the morning, if you have a smoothie, it's easy to throw in a teaspoon. If you have cereal, some people put it in their cereal, some people put it in their porridge. If you need sweetener, you add it. If you don't want to do any of that, the easiest way is to just have it as a tonic with some hot water and a sweetener to your taste, so to speak. And for me, after coming off a world of supplements that was taking lots of pills, I think at one point I was taking like 30 capsules in the morning, you know.
Yeah, that is the problem when you start down trying to supplement. So it's just about how do you change your habit so that you're getting that nutrition and in your day without having to take 500 pills.
Yeah, sort of, you know, you get to the point going, oh, what am I, you know, like what's this one, and you know, all that stuff. But I found that powdered food was the easiest way to boost my food with the benefits of the foods that I was adding to them, and also it kind of reminds you that you're eating and that you're nourishing yourself and you're not just taking a tablet, which is a different mindset, I think, from a wellness point of view, that it's a holistic step.
It's for a rushed mindset, I think. Yeah.
And that's that kind of connectedness as well. And you know, and wellness is about sort of finding your connection to yourself. And as women age, I think that becomes even more important. I talk to a lot of younger girls and I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and should I do this uni degree, and you know, should I study this, and should I go here, and should I go there, and you know, the life is so difficult at the moment. No one really knows. But the one thing that kind of holds you together as a person, for me to be well, is I know myself. You know, and I trust my instincts, and my intuition got a lot better as I dealt with stress, and I learned to trust that more. And you know, you start to become kind of your own rock that you rest on, and your holistic choices reflect how you feel about yourself, instead of becoming, I just got to get better, to, oh, I want to do this because I feel good, or I want to do this because I know who I am, which is kind of where you want to be, like that empowerment of yourself without getting trapped into that existential side where you've got your ego playing about who you think you should be, which I recently just put up a post about, you know, you don't know what you're carrying until you put it down. Because I went through like a moment of going, right, well, I feel like I, you know, have to do this with the business, and I have to do this, you know, with all my other responsibilities. And I'm going, no, really, I am well, and I make the choices for me, and I understand my responsibilities, but I don't have to wear them. And and that's kind of a sign of being well to me.
Great. It's a really beautiful way to put it all. Yeah, I think that's great. Well, I think you've shed so much knowledge. I feel like I've just learned so much from you today. So thank you so much for educating me. And I guess, it's good to hear a little bit more about how you're understanding on a sort of just a kind of surface level, like what, but sort of how it sort of all plays into like my body on a sort of a molecular level, and that kind of impact and the hormones, and I feel like I've really learned a lot, and it's actually just given me some insight, one, into my own behavior, but I can see how beneficial it is to so many people. So thank you for sharing all of your information and wealth of information.
Oh, thank you, because I think it's the privilege of aging and the ability to be able to experience those things and share them is quite an honor.
Oh, thank you. Thanks again for your time today.
Thanks.